a twist.
What's up, humans? This is Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist. And today we're going to be talking about ovulation. Now, this is one of those things that there's a lot of misconceptions about. Women don't even know that much about their body, let alone men. So I kind of wanted to clarify a few things and kind of get the conversation going because everybody's body is different. And honestly, we don't teach enough about this in schools. We are always so focused on abstinence and what not to do and avoiding sex, before marriage and, just to avoid early pregnancy. But we don't really discuss how it all works, because if we knew how it all worked, then we could actually make better choices and be safer in our decisions moving forward. But before we get that started, I am going to Vegas this weekend. I think I've been there now 9 times. I'm not even sure. I actually went out there for a stint because I was trying to see if I could get work out there, and quickly realized I was way too short to be a dancer in Vegas. Just was not going to happen. Had the tits, but didn't have the height. So not that I would completely feel comfortable doing that. I'm like, I'd probably start with my tits looking great, and then by the end of my contract, they'd probably be down to my knees. So actually, it's probably a health concern, and it was probably for the best that I didn't do that. But I could have done like pool go-go dancing and things like that. But I'm like, do I really want to do that? No. Like, I would rather do the shows, and I did audition for a couple of Cirque shows or Cirque-like shows and things like that it didn't pan out at the time. But Vegas is a cool spot, and I love going to visit because everything is conveniently located. Everything's right there. I remember the first time flying into it, I was like, this is the tiniest little place in the world. Like, it literally is just a tiny little strip in the middle of nowhere. And you're like, what? And it has expanded over time. There are families that live there and houses, but like, you see everything on your way in. So you're like, there it is. I've done the helicopter tours of the Grand Canyon, and I always have a good time. And I always laugh because every time I go there, first of all, it's so dry. You need chapstick constantly, and you're constantly shocking people and everything. Like, you touch something and it's just the static electricity out there is just absolutely insanity. And so that's always funny. So bring your chapstick, sunscreen, and you don't really sweat. Like, that's what's creepy about it, at least the last time. Like, there's not really humidity there like there is in Florida. So when you're there laying at the pool, I remember I had like, I don't know what, the third time I went there, and I'm like laying at the pool, and I just looked over at my friend and I'm like, I'm not sweating. And she's like, we're not sweating. I'm like, I'm very hot, but I am not sweating at all. I'm like, what is this? Like, when you're used to Florida, you just like swamp sweat. Like, it just drips off of you. But there, it's like, it must be so hot and dry that as soon as you do sweat, it just evaporates. So you don't really see it on your body. So that's kind of cool. And then you just, you're not feeling as nasty. But I love going. I love the shows. And they've got some new stuff out there. They've got an Area 15 with this like meow, museum experience. And I'm going to go to the Lost Spirits and check out that place, which sounds super cool. I like those immersive experiences, not necessarily like super interactive where it's like audience participation, but I like when there's stuff happening around you. I like little happenings. I like escape rooms. I like scavenger hunts, things like that. So we are going to a couple of other little spots as well that kind of embrace that type of theater and that type of experience. I'm super excited to try the new stuff since I have seen every single Cirque show. My favorite Cirque show is Caw. It is the whole time you're just kind of like, I'm just the stage alone. You're like, whoa, like, it's such a cool experience. So if you haven't been to Vegas, get yourself out there. Don't bring the kids. Have some fun. I'm not much of a gambler. I have gambled, but I am very minimal with it because, and I love Texas Hold'em. I like playing, but like, just the thought of the psychology that you go through with that, I feel like is just too stressful for me. Because if you're up, you're feeling real good. And if you're down, you're really down. So, and I guess that's why people go on benders right after those sad experiences of losing all your cash. So Vegas is a bit of a trap sometimes with that, but lots of cool stuff. So I'm going to go enjoy at least the entertainment value of Vegas. So I'll have to talk about that when I get back. In the meantime, I'm probably going to be starting infertility treatments again next month. So I'm going to have my last hoorahs, some fun before I start the process of stabbing myself in the stomach 4 times a week and then in the butt and, getting blood work done every single or every other day ish and having somebody invade my space. Here I am, world. Check me out. So I just wanted to read up more about it and continue to educate myself on my own body. And so many times women they don't really know much about how everything works. And I was like, let me just check back into this again and clarify. As we know, men are, unless there are major issues, men are typically fertile for most of their lives. Now, there are other things that happen, like their swimmers, can mutate and they aren't as viable and they're a little slower, and that's things that you test and that happen over time as you age. Higher risks of especially when you're trying to conceive of, other diseases and issues and dementia and Alzheimer's and lots of things start going up as you age. Of course, because we've done a lot more to our bodies. We're not as, young and pure anymore. And a lot of things happen as we age. So that does happen. But women aren't fertile every day of the month. And it doesn't feel that way, right? It feels like people are getting pregnant everywhere all the time. But we have to keep in mind that it's, our bodies are doing what it's supposed to do naturally. So typically when you're younger and you're figuring things out, yes, we're more fertile. We have more eggs. We are born with all the eggs that we're ever going to have. And we are born with them inside of our mother's bodies, which is kind of crazy to think about that. But we are constantly losing them. Now, every single month, and we have so many of them, we have our eggs, and there are lots of follicles that are the encasements of these eggs, but we grow them. Now, in infertility, they go in there and they retrieve them from the follicle. So we're constantly measuring them, making sure that we can pull as many out as possible. And some women, like I said, get 1, some get 2, some get 40, depending on how their body grows these follicles. Now, regardless of that, the natural cycle is, yes, you grow all of these eggs, but only 1 actually releases. And each month it can switch sides. So sometimes a woman can feel like, if they're really like in tune with their body, they can feel like, mine's usually on the left side. Oh, but this month it was on the right, and they can kind of feel that pressure and that pain or that heaviness, and they know which side they're ovulating from. So it does switch sides sometimes. But the key factor here is only 1 actually releases. So what happens to all of those other follicles? They die, they move on. And then every month we reproduce more. So it's really sad to think about that, right? So this is why IVF is so important, because we can actually go in there and fetch those guys before they dissolve, and then we lose them. Especially as women are aging over the age of 35, we're trying to hang on to as many of those guys as possible and as many of those good, younger, viable ones as possible. But one thing that a lot of women don't know, because of the verbiage, and I don't know why people are talking about it this way, and I really hope I interpreted this, because I read many articles about this trying to make sure I'm correct and that I'm understanding this. And if someone wants to correct me and who is in this industry, please feel free to message me on YouTube at Katie Rose Straight Up with a Twist, because I want to make sure that my facts are correct. But from what I'm reading, we really can only get pregnant once a month, not like several times during the month. But the verbiage is, oh, well, because sperm can live in your body up to 5 to 6 days, you've got 5 to 6 days in which you can get pregnant, which I think is a bad way of saying it, because technically your egg that ovulates only can survive for 12 to 24 hours. That's it. So you've got that 1 day, that 1 shot. And the problem is, we don't really know exactly when we're ovulating. And if we did know exactly when that little egg is dropping down, then of course we would focus on that and we would be like, it's happening right now, let's have sex, like whatever. But the best thing to know is that once it ovulates and it drops, it's only got 24 hours and then it's out of your system. So the best days to have intercourse are the days leading up to your ovulation because of the fact that sperm can survive in your system, in your body for up to 5 days. So then the next step is to figure out, well, what's my ovulation cycle? Now, standardly, generally, the rule is 28 days. Now, some women are different. Some women ovulate, or their menstrual cycle is, sorry, not ovulate, their menstrual cycle is 35 days, not 28. Some are only 21 days. And I remember for a while there, my period was coming very often. I had a really heavy flow and I was like every 21 days all of a sudden. And there are different factors in your life that can change these things. Stress, medications, a lot of things can change these. The way that you work out, your age is going to change these things as well. I have been more so consistently 28 days. So it has been easier for me to say, okay, I'm ovulating on day 14. But you also have to pay attention to your body. What is your, looking like? Is it an egg white? Is it sticky? They always say when you've got that sticky and it stays between your two fingers, that is like the day. But my concern is, okay, cool, I'm ovulating, but like, yo, that thing's about to pass. So really, you got to be so in tune with your body, that basal temperature, if it's slightly higher, checking in on things like that. And just make it a rule of thumb that if you know that you are a 28-day person and day 14 is when you ovulate, have sex those few days before day 14. So it's typically right at the end of your period. And that's the thing, right? Depending on how your cycle works, that rule about, oh, you can't get pregnant when you're on your period is maybe not actually factual, because if you're a 21-day cycle person, that means you might be starting to ovulate at day 7. So you need to hurry up, right? So a lot of times you got to pay attention to that. Like towards the end of your period might be a good day to start having sex, and then every other day after that, right? So we want to make sure we're getting that good boost of sperm in our body as well, which is so crazy to think about it, but it does matter. It matters, how fast those swimmers are, and especially the best time is in the morning. So the best time is when our body has been relaxing all night and we are energized in the morning, ready to go. And think about it. This is just like kind of common sense, right? Like a guy's always ready to go in the morning. So take advantage of that. That morning wood is telling you, it's time, lady. It's time to go, which is sad because usually women don't really like doing it in the morning. I guess there are some women that prefer it in the morning. I guess it depends on what kind of schedule you have in your life as well. But I usually like to get my day going, and I'm actually like an afternoon delight kind of girl. So I'm like, my energy is highest in the afternoon, and that's typically when I want to. And then I can't because my husband's at work. So so typically we'll try to, throw him a bone in the morning, and I'll give him a good starfish to start out the day. And then positions as well, they say are important. I have totally put my legs over my head. I've done all the things. I've laid there for 15 minutes, put the pillow under my hips, made sure that everything was, flowing in the right direction. But there's no rhyme or reason. Everybody's body's going to be different. And of course, having that fluid. And I have been taking gel that emulates your natural biology, and it's called Pre-Seed. So that's something that I've been using as well, just to help, hey, let's get those swimmers up there. If for some reason that day I'm not producing as much fluid, just help it out. And it's supposed to be obviously better than any of that like KY jelly or stuff. That's just external stuff. So we want to make sure we're getting that stuff that mimics our natural fluids in our body. So that's something that I also was trying as well. And it's always frustrating when you are trying to get pregnant and people are like, oh, maybe you're not, trying whatever. Or some people are like, maybe you're trying too hard, just relax. I'm like, there's really no such thing as trying too hard. Like I'm paying attention to, when I'm ovulating and my body and what it's saying and all these things. Sometimes, people got to think before they say things. Cause like, obviously if I'm trying to have a baby, like I think I'm the one who's like really looking into it and paying attention to it. Other things, factors can affect infertility, caffeine, drinking, smoking. But as most articles say, it's, everything in moderation, of course. And then one thing that I read that I thought was really interesting, is about twins. Now, my grandmother was a twin. So if it does skip a generation, then I could be viable to have them. Which makes me laugh because what if I go through all of this and then all of a sudden I get pregnant with twins and I'm like, oh my God, like now I got two. I was struggling and now I have two, which obviously through infertility, if you do transfer more than one egg, of course, your chances are much higher of having twins. But something that I read as well is that older women actually do have that higher chance because when they approach that, pre-menopause, or I mean, the after, well, it is like pre-menopause. So right before you are going to go into menopause, you get that fertility spike. So there's like a surge, right, that happens in your body, which is this what I'm talking about. It's all of a sudden my libido is like, whoa, like, hey, this is your last ditch effort. And I can feel it. Like I am like, I can't even watch a movie with Chris Hemsworth in it or The Rock. I'm just like, oh my God. Like, maybe my husband's like, okay, could you maybe talk about them less? But I'm like, yo, it's putting me in the mood, bro. So deal with it. But your body is producing more of that FSH. Gosh, I can't say it. The follicle stimulating hormones. So then during ovulation, your body can actually release more than one egg, which is like great and awesome and dandy, but it's sad because your body's like, peace out, eggs, getting rid of you, So it's a double-edged sword with it because you know that this is the end, but it's also like, okay, this is the time. If you wanted to have a kid, do it now. Late 30s, early 40s stage. And I think it's interesting that statistically, African American women are more likely to conceive twins as well. And then they say that Asian women actually have a lower chance. And so I don't know what that is. And I mean, my husband's Asian. I don't know if the sperm matters in that or if it's just the woman. But I found that to be, an interesting statistic as well. And then they do say fraternal twins, yeah, they run in the maternal genetics. So I don't know. Maybe I will. And that will be a cool thing to happen. I also read that taller women, so women with like literally a higher BMI also have increased chances of having twins. I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. Also, foods that they say, like foods to have that can stimulate that hyperovulation is tofu, soy. I've heard a lot about soy. So a lot of women will switch to soy milk when they're having cereal or whatever. Whole wheat, whole grains, oysters, which is funny because that's always been known to be that aphrodisiac thing. High zinc, which is great anyways, because during COVID, get all the zinc that you can. And then gaining like extra body weight. So like things that are like high in dairy. And I know that like a lot of African Americans like say this as well. Like this is like part of their culture. But lettuce, spinach, strawberries, tomatoes, egg yolks, sunflower seeds, asparagus, broccoli, honeydew. You listen to these things and you're kind of like, well, duh, you're like healthy food. Like I hear all that and I just go healthy food. So in general, eat healthy food. Like it's really difficult to just like shove all of these things all at once into your diet. But for the most part, healthy, eat healthy. So it's interesting to think how really there's only that 12 to 24-hour period. And it makes it seem like it's so easy to get pregnant. But in fact, it can take years. It can take months. And then, of course, there's birth control, which statistically and what they've looked into it doesn't make you infertile. It just takes a minute for your body to readjust to how it was. Since the pill, when you're taking the pill, that is what artificially regulates your body. So it's really just your body getting back into it. The only things I've heard of that take a little bit longer are the birth control shots, but it does not increase your risk for infertility. So those are perfectly safe to take. It's more important to be sure you're taking those tests like the HSG test and making sure that your fallopian tubes are open and that there's no blockages so that the egg and the sperm can flow freely into the uterus. And then, of course, checking for things like endometriosis and getting laparoscopies and things like that. These are the important things to check ahead of time to make sure that that baby has a great home to live in and that we avoid things like ectopic pregnancies and things that can lead to major surgeries and miscarriages. So just wanted to give a couple little nuggets of information today if you didn't know all those things. So definitely the days leading up to ovulation are the best times to have sex and to do it every other day or every 2 days, just for the best quality and the fast sperm and all of those fun things. But pay attention to your body. Your body is going to tell you when it's time for the most part. So pay attention to those things. It is nerve-wracking to think about going back into this again. So, of course, I can use all the support that I can get. You never think it's going to happen to you, just like a hurricane. It's never going to happen to me. I remember my OBGYN was like, yeah, I'll see you in a month. Like, he took one look at me and thought, that's a girl who can get pregnant. And you just don't ever know what it is. And mine is still unexplained. I have no idea why I can't get pregnant. And, a lot of people will look to a higher power. And, I've had some people say some very kind things that maybe I was meant for other things that are also as valuable and great in life. And us as women have to make sure that we are telling ourselves and others are telling us that we're still valuable, because a lot of times we feel this pressure and less of a woman, and it can make you feel all kinds of different emotions. And I've done a very good job at keeping the balance in that and trying to make sure that I feel valuable as a woman in life. And my husband's done a good job of that too. The men really need to step up to the plate. Or men can also feel it's insignificant during this time as well. So all kinds of emotions are going around, but it's definitely good to make sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket and think I am a worthless person if I don't have a child, because there's more to this world. And, at the end of the day, we're all seeking love and we're seeking connection. And while that might not be a connection that I ever get to experience, I'm always seeking it, especially with my empathic personality, from other humans that are alive today, that are around me, that are here. So if you're one of those humans and you're one of my friends, reach out to me, because I love spending time with humans and talking to them about their lives and picking their brains and learning about them. So I will be starting to have guests on. So I should, maybe not next week, but the following week. I'm trying to shoot for episode 15 to get my first guest on. And I'm open to so many different topics. I've already had many people reach out to me, but it's definitely easier to have a conversation with another person and keep that flow going than it is to talk to myself in this microphone. Your brain naturally likes to have that back and forth and that rest to kind of think about and contemplate things before you just dive into a diatribe of things. So I will be having future people on. I will let you know how Vegas goes. You know what I really want to do? I want to dance. I am a dancer, but I want to dance. I'm not saying I want to go booty dance, but I want to call up some guy. I have some friends out there, and I want to partner dance. My husband's not much of a dancer. I've taught him a couple of moves, but when you can just when a guy that you grew up dancing with, and that they know salsa, or they know a little bit of ballroom, and they know how to partner, you're it's so much fun. We can go out on the dance floor, and someone knows how to spin a girl around on the floor, and you know how to follow. It's really a good time. It's something I haven't done in a long time, so maybe we could find a place, or I can invite some friends out to do a little bit of spinning on the dance floor. We'll see what happens. But for now, we're gonna go celebrate a birthday. We're gonna have some fun in the sun. I'm gonna lay down with some lay down and have a Mai Tai served to me. That's all I think about when I think about the sun, pool, beach, or vacation. I'm give me a Mai Tai. I'm going to lay right here. That's my go-to drink. Speaking of Mai Tai, and your cocktail of the day is the Mai Tai, served in a tropical glass of your choosing. The main ingredient that gives it its flavor is the almond orgeat, and you can pour that to your tasting. Or you can also use almond bitters. 1 ounce of aged rum, 1 ounce of white rum or golden rum, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, half an ounce of orange curacao, and a lime wedge. Some people add mint, and a lot of people like to add juices. Whether it's a little bit of orange juice, I prefer pineapple juice. Enjoy. All right, humans, that's it for me. Thanks for listening. This has been Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist. Catch my follow-up Fridays on YouTube, where I respond to your YouTube comments on any thoughts or questions relating to each week's episode. It gives you a chance to have a more intimate conversation with me and opens up the door to new topics. Find me at my YouTube channel, Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. And remember, if you're thinking it, I'm probably talking about it.